Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
James, you are showing your age. The older you get, when like hangovers start being like a day and a half or like 2 days. Now your recovery from games is like 2 days or 3 days. None of that bright up and at it the next day. Although you might have had a few bevies more than usual on Saturday.
Well, I'm in my 40s these days, and I went a bit mad for it. So
Is
it's a little bit of an
it?
Oasis tribute there.
Yeah, well, look,
Also, a James Maddison tribute.
possibly. I mean, there was a few shock results at the weekend. There's no doubt that yours was maybe not the fact that you won was a shock result, but the manner of the victory definitely.
Us winning was a shock.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue the case that Wolves going to Fulham and putting four away was also quite a shock, for example. But when you're missing your two centre backs and so on, we'll talk about the games. I think the result was not one that anybody expected, particularly the clean sheet. But a few interesting results over the weekend and a few games to go through. How you feeling fantasy-wise?
All right. Take the week off now because I made my transfer on Saturday night, mate. So,
Oh, did you? You went early.
yeah. Any guesses?
Um, did you have money in the bank?
Yeah.
So you have probably bought Saka
No.
or Joao Pedro,
Yeah.
and you got rid of Strand Larson?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just because Pedro was going up and you didn't have enough money to wait, or
Yeah, enough after the last few performances from him. He's obviously had a goal and assist again at the weekend. Timing's right. It was one where what had made my decision on my transfers was I could leave myself options to get to Saka or Watkins in 14. I just needed to deliberate while I was pissed out of my mind on Saturday night trying to get a cab in Finsbury Park, which I couldn't do at past midnight or 1 o'clock, whatever time it was. That yeah, I needed to get him in, and if I wanted Saka or Watkins for 14, or if I have an injury during this week, yeah, hit fine.
okie
Although
dokie.
Suj, had I not taken a hit this week, I'd be on something stupid at the moment.
Well, listen, had I not made my transfer, I'd be on something stupid too. So where are you up to points wise?
I'm on 64 minus 4. Had I not done anything, I'd be all out on 83, I think.
Oh, nice.
I
You
don't think
sold?
I don't think Lewis Hall and Alexander Isak are getting that for me tonight. So yeah, I bought Hall and Isak. So I'm 64 minus 4 with a 2 to go.
Who
I
did you sell?
sold Trent
Yeah.
and Dominic Solanke.
Well, look, Trent didn't play though, did he?
No, but obviously if I just left it, I'd have Pedro Porro's 14 points sitting in the team rather than on the bench, wouldn't I?
Oh, ouch. Yeah,
But I
that
was never
could
going to play him this week. And in fact, I was joking with people on my stream on Saturday. I didn't even put him on the bench in dilemmas because I was like, there's no point playing him, kids.
Well,
He's getting nothing. He's getting 2 at best, probably 1 at best.
yeah, you're making me feel a little bit better because I actually looked at my transfers that I potentially could have made this week, and I was trying to think like I had a kind of long-term strategy around moving on Bomo, getting David Raya in. So Odegaard was on the cards for me, maybe even a different striker. Pedro was on the table as well. But all of them were kind of like game week better in game week 13, 14 or 15. None of them were better that week. And the one transfer that made my team, that was part of the whole mix, that made my team better this week, on paper obviously, was Porro to Lewis Hall, because I could play Lewis Hall. I looked at your fixtures over the next, including the City game, and I looked at it, I thought, I don't think you'll keep a clean sheet against Fulham. I don't think you'll keep a clean sheet against City. I
So,
don't think you'll keep a
despite the
clean sheet.
weekend, I don't think we keep a clean sheet against anyone. Don't worry about
Well,
it.
the only one in the next 6 that I thought could be a clean sheet was Southampton. So I'm like, all right, Porro, for the next 6 game weeks, I've got 1 clean sheet and maybe an attacking return or 2 is it worth it, or can I move it on to Lewis Hall? Obviously, he gets an attacking return and a clean sheet and maximum bonus in the first fixture, so that pisses all over my strategy. But I don't think, obviously, Lewis Hall today could easily outscore him with a 24-pointer with like 4 goals and whatever else. But it's not likely going to happen.
He hasn't had a shot all season.
So, yeah, exactly that. So I'm on 61 so far. Can Nico edit in some massive like drum roll celebration music or something? Because I have goalkeeper points, James.
Oh yeah, well done. You got Mark Flecken.
Yes, indeed. 9 points. First clean sheet of the season. So happy with that. That's probably up there alongside Daniel Munoz's points that I had earlier in the season as my favourite FPL points of the season so far. Flecken's 9-pointer, which kind of, I don't think it's influenced my transfer decisions, but I do think I'm going to stick with Flecken for a little bit. Gabriel's clean sheet. I mean, plenty have got Arsenal double really, so it didn't really help. I didn't have anything from my midfield, which I'll come back to, but Solanke's assist and Watkins' goal were quite tidy. Salah captain for me.
I was going to say, you didn't have anything from your midfield other than
no,
26
Salah captain,
points.
But you've got
captain.
Rodgers, Palmer, Mbomo, Semenyo. Nothing from the lot of them. Salah carrying the water as he quite often does. 61's not bad. It's put me on a green arrow. I've got Lewis Hall to go today. I think it will stay a green arrow. If I can get up to 650, I'll be happy with that. I mean, obviously, I don't want Newcastle to keep a clean sheet today, but let's see what happens. I'll happily take an assist off him or something to help him creep up.
I'm on a tiny red at the moment, so 55k, but obviously with the 2 to go tonight, so I presume it's going to probably turn into a tiny green or a healthy green, subject to what those 2 players do tonight. However, James very much remembers the Monday against Chelsea last season when I went in with 3 Tottenham players and it looked like a certain green arrow and I got 1 point from the 3 players. So I will not be counting any chickens at this stage.
Yeah. Don't. I've got obviously Semenyo now suspended. I've got Strand Larsen. So you had Strand Larsen and Porro on your bench.
I think I got -1 from those 3 players. Wasn't you doggy like a -3, Maddison a 1,
remember, mate, to be
and
honest.
Son a 2, I think. Maybe I got 0 or something.
Ouch. Did you have Strand Larsen on your bench as well?
No, I started him.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't going to actually. And I just thought about it more and more. It was like everybody was predicting Garnacho not to start, including myself. And I'd kind of gone with a theme of, well, if he has an hour or if he has half hour, he can still do damage in that time. And actually got a lot more minutes than I'd expected. Had I known that, would have started him. But I do think there's probably something to be said just generally anyway of just go with the forward. It used to be a mantra I used to have. I feel like with this season, if you've got a forward that's decent, just play it. Nearly always at the moment. Look at Solanke's only got an assist at the weekend, and so's Larsen. But
both have scored all my midfield bar Salah.
Their 2 teams have scored 4. So had either of them scored to go on top of the assist, then you're looking at a really healthy return there. So yeah, I decided to start with Larsen. He's been binned now because I think clearly there's 2 forwards for me that I haven't got in Joao Pedro and obviously Matheus Cunha. And it's like the Cunha route for me is I've left it a little bit late. It's not that I can't come back to it, and I may well do so, but it would leave me tighter for any move I want to make for Saka and Watkins. And the time for Joao Pedro is absolutely now. Like, you know, he started at the weekend, goal and assist, great fixture Friday night. Yeah, time to get on with it. So.
Yeah, I've got a slightly different strategy and approach. I'm looking at Strand Larsen, and obviously I've got different problems to you. I mean, I've got Semenyo suspended now, and when I look at him, all right, I'm going to miss this week, and then the fixtures following that. All right, Spurs, Ipswich, West Ham, Man United. Do I want to hold him or do I want to move him on? I look at Strand Larsen, and I regret obviously not buying Cunha, as I think anybody that went down the route that we did does. But again, I'm not sure if I need to fix it right now. I also look at Mbomo is going to be a move on next week. And then do I want to keep Guardiola or not? So I've been looking at Semenyo to Mitoma, because I don't think I'm going to do what you've done, which is Strand Larson to Pedro. So Mitoma kind of covers me off Pedro. If I do Semenyo to
Does it though?
Mitoma, it doesn't, but it does. You know what I mean? It's a different proposition, isn't it?
It feels at the moment you're buying an inferior player for a higher price.
Potentially, yeah.
As in an inferior fantasy player, just for clarity.
Yeah, I mean, Pedro came off as well early, didn't he? Which I can understand because obviously they had the man sent off, didn't they? And he's still coming back to fitness. But I think Mitoma still has explosiveness in him. And I like the fact that his ownership is ridiculously low, whereas everyone else is. Pedro is going to be one of the community bandwagons this week. Not for wrong reasons, he should be, but quite often when you get that bandwagon, it ends up flopping. If I went Strand Larson I could go Strand Larson straight to Pedro and keep the money and then do something different with Semenyo. But what was 0.1, James, short of Strand Larson to Pedro and Semenyo to Odegaard. And if that was on the table at point, like if I had the extra 0.1, I would have made that move already just to make sure that I wasn't priced out. Why?
Because Saka is worth finding the extra 4 rather than blocking yourself down.
I think. Then I can't do it. Then I've got to sacrifice Ollie Watkins, and I don't think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, but you might find game week 16, that's your move, mate. Keep Watkins for this 14, 15, set it up to go Saka in 16.
Yeah, I mean, Saka's got a good fixture this week in terms of West Ham. Then they've got Man United, haven't they?
It's also Cunha.
Saka's at any time, any place.
It's not the end though. You go Cunha in 16. You got Ipswich at home and Leicester away.
Cunha is a kind of a season keeper almost, right? Because we saw at the start of the season when they had difficult fixtures, he was still chipping away and returning. Now that they've had easier fixtures, he's increased his returns. I think Cunha, for me, if I went to Matheus Cunha, I don't think I'd be coming off him for a while, as long as he kept performing. He's still a cheap asset at 6.9. I think he's performing better than... He's the third highest scoring striker now, I think, behind Jackson and Haaland. And I think
sixth overall or something now.
Yeah, he'll
phenomenal
keep
considering the
along.
fixtures they've had. But the reality is, I don't think I'd view any player in this game as a definitive. They're sitting there all season at the moment.
No. Even like Mboma earlier in the season when we were looking at that. I mean, but I do think getting Cunha, I prefer Cunha over Pedro, you know.
I can understand
as an asset. I think Cunha over Pedro. Because I can always...
Cunha's way safer for the minutes, without a doubt. We're obviously paying a higher price ticket. It's worth saying I've been banging on about Wish J a lot. I mean, the way he's going is going to be Wish JC soon, isn't it? Because he's going to be part of that group from a price perspective soon.
Yeah, the other thing is Watkins to Pedro clearly gives me the money to get to Saka, should I want to. So I could store that transfer up for game week 15 or game week 16, as you mentioned. And defensively, I'm still looking at... I might get rid of Gvardiol for... Timber and double up on the Arsenal defence. Flecken is an interesting one. He's obviously got 9 points. In his last 5 games, he's gone 4-1, 4-1, 9. And he's so regularly picking up save points. He's kind of averaging 4 a game over the last 5. He rarely doesn't pick up save points. And I think when he does keep a clean sheet, and we saw that against Fulham, which was so close yet so far, he's going to end up 10, 12 points. So I think I'm going to leave Flecken in there, you know, because I think it'll be 3s and 4s, the odd 2, and then eventually he'll pick up a 10-pointer or something. So I don't see the need to spend more money to go to Raya, for example, or Onana or anybody else. I think Flecken I'm just going to leave in for now. I don't think the fixtures are the worst if you look over a long period. They're not great.
It's terrible after this week, mate.
I don't think so.
No,
Aston Villa away, Newcastle's a home fixture, but I mean, Brentford are shit generally in terms of defensively, right? So, what are you going to do? Go to who would you recommend as a keeper over Flecken right now?
If I was investing new at that price bracket, for Bruggen or Sanchez. Yeah,
I can't be asked to use a transfer to make that move. What I'd like is a wild card because I could make 5 moves at the same time, but ain't going to happen. I've debated the Raya Vandenberg versus Fleck and Timber, because there's 500,000 in Raya Vandenberg gives me 500,000 as well to put in the bank. And you're just getting a defensive asset from Brentford and a defensive asset from Arsenal. But I'm not sure at the moment on that either. That's another consideration. But I'm not selling Flecken this week. It's Leicester at home. So,
Okay. For clarity, 64 for me. One good performer I had other than captain Mo Salah was Nicholas Jackson, 12-pointer at Leicester. Last an assist, Gabriel and Raya, clean sheets.
He's a pain in the arse, Jackson, man.
I mean, if I don't get any injuries this week,
if he didn't have 4 yellow cards, I think the investment in Jackson would be way higher.
Oh yeah, like to be honest, people who made that Isak versus Jackson choice this week because of that were buying Isak. I need to be aware of it, right? I've got Jackson on 4 yellows, Aït-Nouri on 4 yellows. Semenyo's just got suspended for a lot of people. Actually, Semenyo getting suspended is really good potentially for me because it brings him back on the table. Not for now, obviously, but maybe from next week, because my route to Saka is probably via getting a little bit of money from Porro or Garnacho. But with the minutes Garnacho played yesterday and then playing Everton on Sunday, then I'm quite happy to start Garnacho this week whilst Rodgers goes to Chelsea. So I look at my bus team for this week: Raya, Porro, Gabriel, Aït-Nouri, Salah, Bumo, Palmer, Garnacho, Jackson, Joao Pedro, Isak. And think, unless something's getting injured, which is almost definitive now I've said it, that's great. Crack on. See you next week, kids, for the next busy one. And I by the way, I intend to captain Salah this week.
I think the interesting thing is, like, between us, there's quite a lot of variance in terms of routes that people can go down. I think it's nice that there are a lot of different striker options that are cheap. That means people can play around with a little bit more of the premiums at the moment. In terms of template, because I even looked across my team, I've only got like 3 or 4 players that are over 20% owned. And we do our differential league with the patrons that's 20% cut off and threshold. It's like Rodgers, Palmer, Salah, Watkins are the only players I own that are over 20% owned. So quite spread out in terms of ownership of assets at the moment.
For those who captained Haaland this week, which was generally the advice I was given,
I would have done the same.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Listen, his XG was still nearly 1 despite losing 4-0, right? And anyone who watched the first 10 minutes that have been thinking, I'm getting points here from Haaland. And actually been a lot of Salah captainers thinking at 2-1 down for Liverpool yesterday. And actually the expected, it does slightly favour Salah by the end, but the expected data with the minus of the penalty is very close between Haaland and Salah. So look, if you're just focused, I said this to someone on Twitter over the weekend, if you're just focused just on the outcome, then you've got no chance in this game. You're just unlucky. It has been an absolutely brutal swing for those who have kept Haaland and ignored Salah over the last 3-4 weeks or so. The difference in points is barely believable. Since he scored against Arsenal, Haaland scored 2 from an XG of 8.
And I'm sure I was looking at the stats. Joao Pedro this season scored 4 from an XG of like 1 point something. Cunha's scored about 7 from an XG of like 3. He's the reverse of these guys, and it can happen, right? Whereas Haaland's usually the other way. He scores more than his XG.
If you're still on Haaland, though, it's go now.
I just think it's very risky advice. No, it's not risky advice. It's one of those where whenever you go, it could potentially hurt you.
Of course, it's the best number 9 finisher around, right? So at any point, yes, he's going to go off. I'm just saying, you got Liverpool away this week. You've just watched City at the weekend. They're clearly massively vulnerable at the moment. The excuse is there with the fixture to now move it. And if you go to something like Joao Pedro, if you don't have Salah, your path there is really clear. I actually think this weekend, I think Salah's the best captaincy.
I was going to move on to that as a question because I know that a lot of people will be debating it when City play Liverpool. It's your 2 biggest owned assets in the game. Maybe Palmer's up there are obviously playing each other in a tough fixture. People may consider moving the captaincy around. You don't think maybe going rogue with an Mboma at home to Leicester? He's had some big double-digit hauls in his home games. You've got Palmer's got a home game against Villa, who've just conceded another couple. Dare I say it, Spurs got a home fixture against Fulham, Dominic Solanke.
Saka at West Ham. I think Saka at
I
West
mean,
Ham's probably the next best.
that's the only thing I don't like with Saka. It's an away game. That's the only thing with that. So I'm just kind of.
I actually think if City had won on Saturday and Salah had blanked yesterday, I think there'd actually be a real surge to captain in Joao Pedro this week.
That's the other consideration as well. There's
And I think
a lot
some
of good
will do
options.
that. Not many, but I think some will do that.
I think eventually, the closer it gets, the more people are going to default to Salah. I do think the narrative will continue to build that City are in bad form, Liverpool are in good form. Just go with Salah.
I think where we're at now, I mean, like Salah's returns yesterday has done very little for me where I'm ranked.
Yeah,
So
me too. I think his effective ownership for me is 170%. So
I'm now in a position where I pretty much need a really good reason to go against him now. I don't see enough good reasons from the alternative. I've obviously got a first-hand look at City at the weekend. I would expect Salah to return. I expect Liverpool to beat City at the weekend. And I think that there is the possibility that, not that it will be like Saturday for City, but if I said to you now, Liverpool win 3-1 or something, are you surprised?
Not at all. I think
that's the point.
That there's 9 points between them, and it's at Anfield. 8 points between them, isn't it? And it's at Anfield. I think the crowd will sense, right, okay, if we can win this and open up an 11-point gap, then that is monster at this stage of the season.
We'll talk about it more when we do the games. City's legs are not there. And if you haven't got the legs when you go to Anfield, you beat.
What's the situation with midweek fixtures this week?
City have final Tuesday. Liverpool have Real Madrid Wednesday. They're both at home. So there is a good break for City, obviously, from Tuesday to Sunday, but Wednesday to Sunday is not so much of a problem. Liverpool's problem from that perspective will be after City.
Liverpool are in a better position in the Champions League as well, having won all their games, whereas City lost to Sporting, didn't they? So they'll want to win.
Oh, if you offer Liverpool fans the choice now, whether they beat Madrid Wednesday or City Sunday, it's definitely
City
Sunday.
All day long. Yeah. No doubt about it. Good. Let's rattle through some of the games. Before we do, though, we thought we'd just let you know, listeners, what we have for you for the rest of the week, because there will be a variety of content coming out.
Clash of Correspondence actually going to be tomorrow. I'm recording with Gary Robinson and Sean Norton later today. That's Manchester United versus Everton. That'll be available for you tomorrow. Clayton James
it'll be good though, because obviously we get Gary's first-hand view on Amorim's first game.
Almost like I planned these things, although this schedule was done in pre-season. Sean is not happy. I can warn you that now. Everton haven't scored in
copy paste. The
might of West Ham, Southampton, and Brentford. Like, he's not happy. Play your United defensive assets this weekend, I would suggest. Wednesday, Clayton and James showdown will include a review of tonight's Monday Night Football. Arsenal win Sporting Lisbon tomorrow night as well. Thursday, People's Poll podcast will decide on topics later in the week. Friday, our James stream is going to be early in the morning, about 9:30 a.m. because it is a Friday deadline this week. So a busy one for me. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Podcast this week include a Q&A on Monday, tomorrow, UCL Fantasy. Me and Clayton will be talking about Tottenham on Wednesday, including my trip to the Etihad, which has, Suj, more amusing stuff to talk through. Not quite the Ricky Saunders electric car in the pissing rain, but there's some more funny stuff. And I will save a lot of my Tottenham emotion for that, I think, rather than go over the top today. Thursday, we're going to do Money in Football, Suj, on Lyon, who have been given a suspended relegation to League 2 if they don't sort out their finances in France. And we'll have our Game Week 13 preview on Friday as well.
Good. Right, James, I pulled up the BBC website just now because I wanted to check on if there'd been any Steve Cooper news before we get into the games, as the first game happened to be Leicester versus Chelsea. And let me read you this, if you don't mind.
So are you oblivious to news just generally?
No. I know. I get my news from very reliable sources like Twitter. This is posted 21 minutes ago. Mo Salah, disappointed by lack of Liverpool offer. Have you seen this?
I've seen the video. Yeah, it's a video of Mo Salah outside St Mary's yesterday, saying he's not been offered a contract by Liverpool.
We are almost in December and I haven't received any offers yet to stay in the club. I'm probably more out than in.
Yeah, I've seen the video, so he's not being misquoted here at all.
I hadn't seen it yesterday, James. That
If
that's
Liverpool have not
crazy.
offered him a contract, that is staggering.
That is crazy. I'm more
In fact,
out than
you would
in.
say it's inept negligence.
I mean, wow. When does his contract expire? It's not the end
End
of
of
this
season.
season. Oh, is it? He had a 1 year extension on his
Yeah,
deal.
in 5 weeks he can go and talk to clubs around the world about moving for free if he wants.
That is staggering. I think I'm in shock. Let's talk about the games while I digest in the back of my head that news. Leicester 1, Chelsea 2, managerless Leicester. This whole sack race always comes up. People are like, who do you think is going to be the first to lose their jobs? Well, we know it. Well, it wasn't the first to lose their job, but first since we'd been asked last on a Q&A. Cooper's gone. I'm surprised by that, to be honest with you.
The timing is weird. As well, what you waited for an international break, and then what you waited to what was you expecting to beat Chelsea at home, and I realised they were the fact that they had the penalty right at the end of the game masked the fact that they did absolutely nothing offensively in the game, basically bar one decent effort from the young boy Casey McAteer in the first half. That they were pony. They're
Four
boring,
shots in the entire game. 0.11 XG. That's bad.
It's Chelsea at home. It's not definitive of your season. You know, the fixtures next, Brentford away, West Ham at home are going to be more definitive to what Leicester's season looks like, not Saturday. It seems weird. Unless the person they wanted had suddenly become available. Suddenly it was like, yeah, okay. So if they do something quick and they've identified something and they couldn't do that during the international break, then fine. Names being linked at the moment are pretty much all available. So Potter, Van Nistelrooy's name's been mentioned, and I get obviously he was unavailable a couple of weeks ago. And David Moyes, David Moyes feels like it would be a good appointment for Leicester at this moment with what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
not a long-term one.
I feel like Potter, if Potter was going to come in, he'd do it till the end of the season, but always would be looking for a club maybe a bit above.
With a rumour on Potter was they turned it down
decent.
in the summer.
Right. Yeah, I think Moyes wouldn't be a bad shout. Whether or not he'd be able to get a tune out of that squad, I mean, the quality, there's bits and pieces in there, but it's not. It's going to struggle all season. Reality is Van Nistelrooy
anyway. Would be a big risk, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Moyes, if they appoint Moyes, I think you look over your shoulder and you think, oh, they'll have a proper go. If David Moyes got appointed as Leicester manager, you would think they've got a better chance of staying up than they do now. What's also slightly weird
with
about
Steve
this,
versus Steve Cooper?
Yeah, I think so. The problem with Cooper was, and I know this because it was at the King Power in game week 1, right? They weren't going to take him. They announced him on the pitch before the game, and the majority of the ground fucking booed Suj. So he was kind of damned from the start, man.
David Moyes, I saw the last season of David Moyes and the amount of goals we conceded and how badly we defended with, I would say, better defenders than Leicester have right now. So,
Are you saying Wout Faes is...
I'm saying, no, I'm saying I don't think that look, David Moyes will get them organised and he'll get them in a structure and he'll probably get them defensively stubborn, but we were defensively stubborn and still leaked a lot of goals. Once the first goes in, it can be trouble. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think at least Steve Cooper, I mean, you look at what he had at Forest. The Forest fans liked him because he had a way of coaching and style. I think if they get relegated, Steve Cooper would be more likely to get them back up, whereas I don't think Moyes would be as likely. I think they'd probably part company with Moyes if they got relegated. If that was the choice that they make, yeah, no, I'm not thinking that Moyes is going to be the solution for them.
Here's the thing, right? They had Enzo Maresca. Everybody is familiar with his style of play, right? And last year, Leicester played some brilliant football. It was at times frustrating, but they dominated that league. Admittedly, they should have dominated that league with the players they had. They've lost Maresca, lost their key player, Keenan Dewsbury Hall, in the summer as well. Got a good reception when he came on. Then you appoint Cooper because you've appointed the managers, right? Okay, shit, we want to stay up. It's not going to be the same brand of football. So if they've done that and then they go for, say, Potter now, I don't really understand. It would really make me question what the thinking is behind the football club. Or have you just changed your opinion and go, nah, shit, we got it completely wrong. We got this guy in to keep us up, and that was the priority. And now we want to go back to football. They're 16th. So technically, Cooper's not failed. Because I'm sure every Leicester fan right now would take 17th.
Yep. Yep.
It's
Yeah, when I
interesting.
look at the table and I just kind of thinking who's going to stay, who's in the bottom three that could get out. Like Palace, I think could get out. Southampton, I think, are going to find it difficult. Ipswich down, they're going to find it difficult. Then it's Wolves and Everton. So
They've got decent fixtures, Leicester. They're fifth on my ticker over the next five. So it feels like a really important period.
yeah, yeah, no doubt.
Not that we're looking at any of their assets
From
for
a fantasy point of
fantasy.
view, yeah,
And while Wout
yeah.
Fast continues to defend like that, as he did on Nicholas Jackson's goal, we can stay absolutely rooted to last on my bench every bloody week. Although if David Moyes coming up, cheeky Wout Fast start against West Ham in game week 14 is not an impossibility, Suj. Casey McAtee's
He'll
4.7.
score from a header when from a corner, about fast set piece goal. David Moyes against West Ham.
Yeah.
Yes.
Casey McAteer's 4.7, who might have intrigued people a little bit at the weekend. I don't particularly think it's worth going there. Factoring, obviously, Buonanotte was suspended at the weekend, has played really well. They lost Fatu, ACL injury out for the season.
Mm,
But they're just quite bland,
yeah.
to be honest. I don't think that their squad is stronger now than it was last season. It's the reality. So I think whoever comes in has got a really, really tough job to do. There's no interest from fantasy. The interest does remain in terms of Chelsea players, obviously. Malagusto missed out because of illness. And I know a few people went there and bought this week. The word on Reece James, it seems to be getting worse by the day because it started on Thursday or Friday. I think Thursday, Maresca's press conference with he's got a little bit of a hamstring problem. We're being precautionary with him too. Now it's like, oh, Christmas is the earliest you'll see him. And if that's the earliest, then you've got to factor in he's missing the next sort of 6, 7 game weeks or so, which is enough time, I think, to go Gusto or Cucurella rather than, say, Colwell at the moment. And that was one of the decision points for me to go Hall rather than Colwell, was I knew there wouldn't be anything else from Newcastle I wanted. Whereas with Chelsea, if I gave myself a bit more breathing space, say when I downgrade Porro, it might be that I go Gusto or Cucurella with a little bit more information instead. I probably would favour Gusto out of that, despite the fact he didn't play at the weekend. Nicholas Jackson, the one thing I've been urging for people like me who have him is do not sell him. And the big reason for that is because he's on 4 yellows, no one else wants to take that punt and go there. So he just remains a brilliant differential who's ticking over. Absolutely great. It's not to say people need to go up there and get there. I'm saying people aren't. So for me, it's like until that booking happens, he ain't going nowhere for me. Until we at least hit kind of this end of Chelsea's great fixtures. But they never end. They
No,
never end. And he did go a long period without getting that 5th yellow last year. So, yeah, he's doing really good for me. Cole Palmer obviously should have scored, but it was a great block by Noni Madueke. So shit
yeah.
happens.
It's like Madueke goal blocks Palmer. It just a random coincidence. Palmer's returns with Madueke don't seem to be quite the same. I don't know if there's any coincidence in that.
I think there'll be people captain Palmer this week. I think it'll be popular. Not as popular as it would have been because of the weekends that Liverpool and City have had, or specifically Salah and City have had. But there will be people who are captain Cole Palmer this week. I would say he's not quite at his best at the moment, it feels. I think he probably is playing with a little bit of a problem.
He's carrying that niggle, isn't he? That he
And
has
it
been for
doesn't
a
help
little
when he
while.
gets tackles like that tackle from Wilfred and Diddy, which for me, that's a red card.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awful tackle, really dangerous. Should have been sent off, in my opinion. But yeah, if people want to go Palmer this week, there's no reason not to. Despite the fact I do think there is a bit of concern that he doesn't start at Southampton in game week 14. And then from that perspective, you do look at it and go, Villa, Tottenham next 2. Can it wait? And that was the advice I'd given a few people at the weekend. We're trying to force it. With people saying to me, should I take like -4 Saka to Palmer on my deadline stream? So I think Saka will play. This doesn't. I realise you plan to get Palmer here, but it might be hang on, just breathe and wait a few more weeks. And that might be the right play for non-Palmer owners, is maybe even to wait a little bit longer to game week 16 when they play Brentford at home. Because if he doesn't start at Southampton, then the right decision would be to wait, I think.
Yep. Arsenal 3, Nottingham Forest nil. Interesting to kind of look at that Arsenal team. I mean, the back five looks so solid, but then a few tweaks in front. We know no Declan Rice, so Marino comes in. Martinelli didn't start, Trossard did. No Havertz, Jesus starts. So a little bit of tinkering. I don't think any of those players particularly weaken the team or make it a significant downgrade where you can see sometimes, but a little bit of mixing it up there. Obviously having Odegaard back in now for his second game, 2 assists in his last 2 as soon as he's come back in, it is great for him. What's your thoughts around Forest in terms of no Gibbs White, though not injured, right?
My thoughts are Nuno's pissed me off.
And no Chris Wood. I don't think he's thrown the game per se, but he has kind of just taken a view of like, okay, I may as well rest them here where the chances of getting a result are particularly low, and I'll get them fit and ready for the next one.
Yeah, there's definitely
he's pretty much done that, right?
There's definitely a little bit of prioritising of the Ipswich game, his forthcoming week. In Wood's case, he did travel to go and play New Zealand in Samoa. So he did have one hell of a journey. So I think we can factor that in. And Wood owners shouldn't be concerned. He'll be back in for this weekend. Although you probably are looking at something like Joao Pedro and still really tempted. Ipswich are beginning to look like a half-decent side now, in my opinion. I think that Wood falls into player that you can categorise as a captaincy option this week, though, despite that. Gibbs White obviously went away with England. It felt like he's been playing with a problem, and you can completely understand, as it's new for him, why he's gone and played away with England. And I understand Forest letting him go and play. He's probably not at 100%. That's how it feels at the moment. The reality is this was very straightforward for Arsenal. Forest never laid a glove in the match, basically. And it's a really positive sign for Arsenal that they made these changes, and yet that was still the case. I think the standout ones were Havertz had played every minute so far this season. So that now feels like why did that happen? As a little bit of concern based around maybe around Christmas. Arsenal to have good fixtures where they could do this again, right?
Yeah, but maybe it's because he's played every minute this season that they did it this time round.
Like the whole point timing's interesting, though.
Maybe they looked at it and thought this is a game that we can win.
Oh yeah, definitely. And listen, Arsenal should be able to rotate 3 or 4 and beat Nottingham Forest at home.
I wouldn't be concerned with Havertz if I owned him.
Standouts from the weekend would be Saka. You want reality. If you've got, you're obviously very happy. I do think he would be worth paying extra on rather than trying to fit Odegaard in. So I really would feel strongly about that.
Yeah. There's a big difference though. I just think Odegaard, the problem with Odegaard at the moment is that you haven't seen it this season so far. Look, the first few games that he played right at the start of the season, he didn't get any attacking returns, and he's kind of crept back in with 2 assists. I think if he starts getting double returns in games, like a goal and assist, a couple of assists consistently, I think he'll be back on people's minds as, oh yeah, he pulls all of the strings here. So yeah, I know where you're coming from, and obviously Saka's ownership is so much higher that it kind of covers you off a little bit. But
I think he's a captainable option this week. It's worth saying
Saka.
It's worth saying Arsenal have had difficult away games, so this is why this slant is in. But of his 80 points so far in FPL, 59 of them have been at home.
The big hauls, Wolves, Southampton, and now Nottingham Forest have been at home. That's it. 3 double-digit returns.
The hauls in reliable home games where you expect them to come is where they have arrived.
And even Liverpool was a 9-pointer.
And therefore, Arsenal having Everton at home in 16 and Ipswich away at home in 18 makes me go, because I know people have been saying, well, I'm probably not going to captain him over those games. And I agree with that, by the way. Because say in 18, like Salah's got Leicester at home. I don't need to make that sort of decision. 16, Salah and Palmer got good fixtures as well. I don't think I'd go Saka for captaincy either. But there's a good chance he's going to return really well in those 2 home games. I think of the next 3, interestingly, I think United in 14 is the game he's most likely to go off in. I'm not bothered about not having him at Fulham, despite their result at the weekend 15. That feels like more one that will be really difficult for space for him. So I think for me, if I get any injury this week, I'm looking at potentially trying to put him in from -8, subject to what that injury is. And obviously, if it was Salah or Palmer picked up a problem, Saka's going straight in. There would be
That's
no debate on that.
big hit, big hit.
Yeah, well, I know to potentially put him in maybe in 14, I'm looking at maybe a -4. But that's the
Mm.
player I'd want. So if you deem it over the longer term, get it in, right? He's going to keep going up in value. Remember, I kept looking at Anderson, Suj, as a
Yep,
4.3. And
yep.
a part of that was thinking, well, I'll go Bukayo Saka in at 14. Well, Anderson got crocked at the weekend by the looks of it, which we haven't got any
Yeah, calf
information on.
injury at the
And
moment.
Saka banged, suddenly he's gone up in price. Going Anderson would have done nothing for me. So I'm pleased actually that ultimately I didn't take that route. Therefore, it was always going to be a hit for me to have
Yep.
to put Saka in. It doesn't mean that I'm going to end up doing it. And at the moment, I'm not going to put him in this week unless I walk into a problem. I think the other key thing to highlight, and I've only seen the highlights, I've not seen a lot of the games from Saturday, in all honesty, but Jurriën Timber caught the eye in terms of his positioning. I think those who took the choice to go down that route will be really infused with some of his positioning and that interchanging with Saka and Odegaard in that right channel. There were occasions he got in the box. He obviously had a goal disallowed, so he's going in the box for a set play as well. So I know Clayton thinks all vibes Calafiori, and I think Timber is the better choice out of the two. And I think at this stage, if I was debating sort of Timber versus Saliba, I'd be going Timber.
They both got the same points this season so far, 30. So yeah, I don't. And Saliba's not picking up any BPS on anything. So why bother paying the extra?
But small caveat, you should remember that he had an ACL injury last season. That means at any point of an easy fixture, Arsenal might try and leave him out. That's the only thing. But for 5.5 ish, that's good value at the moment. I would find the extra for Gabriel still.
Yeah, I'd say Gabriel over Timber, yes, but not Saliba over Timber. And yeah, I'm not feeling Calafiori as well. Do you not think Ray is a safer way into the Arsenal defence over Timber at the same price?
Safer, yeah. Yeah. But I don't think, I think ultimately these decisions like Raya or Timber, if not many people are going to be on wildcard now. Anyone who's got it left, I think, is probably wait until at least sort of after Liverpool City. This would feel like a really odd week, I think, to wildcard in the majority of cases, unless you really want to start going proper heavy on Brighton and Wolves and stuff like that. Okay, but in the longer term, that's going to come back and eat you. So don't think many people on wildcard now. So ultimately, if you're trying to make that choice, it's going to come down to what you're selling. So I
Mm.
think for you, Suj, like in 14, Leckens are rare, right? If you're sitting there with Verbruggen as your goalkeeper, there's not a really reason to change it. So if you're looking at Arsenal investment, you're looking at defenders. So ultimately, it's close enough. It will come down to what you want to sell at this moment, right?
Yeah, I think if you remember back at the start of the season when Arsenal kept 3 clean sheets out of the first 4, one of the conversations we were having was Ray was picking up every time they had a clean sheet, he picked up BPS. Like it was a 10 pointer, a 9 pointer, an 8 pointer for clean sheets with the saves and stuff. Obviously, this weekend he didn't, but they've gone and scored 3 goals. And I don't see Timber or Saliba picking up bonus points on clean sheets, but I do see Raya being able to pick up bonus points
But
on clean
Saliba got one at
sheets.
the weekend,
Did he?
despite the 3-0, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, he got a 7 pointer, didn't he? I still think Raya will average more over a period than Timber will. So that's why I kind of am I thinking, is it better just to get
I think
Raya
there's
in
a
and leave
little
him?
bit of an anomaly in there in the sense that obviously a couple of those clean sheets, Villa away, he made some big saves, didn't he? Game
Mm.
2. And then there was Tottenham away game 4. Remember, Arsenal got the majority of their difficult away games out of the
Out of the way
way.
now. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, look, I'm on Rayo and I'm happy with that, and it's not going to be changing for me anytime soon. I just think ultimately, if people want to invest in Arsenal defensively, it will come down to what they're selling rather than having a definitive. I think Rayo's better than Timber or vice versa. I think it's close enough. Yes, Rayo will play every game if people are
That's
that worried about it.
that's a safer, more sensible. Well, I wouldn't say sensible, but safer bet for sure. Let's talk about Aston Villa 2, Crystal Palace 2. Desmond, James. Desmond.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty good result for Palace
Well,
under
it's a
the
really good result to go
circumstances.
away.
The Venny young lads, Northern Ireland internationals, played again, took his goal really, really well. The word going into the weekend was that Eze wanted to play,
Mm.
but Oliver Glasner held him back. So I imagine he'll be back in the squad coming up into this week. So they've obviously taken the cautious route on Eze. The reality is with Nketiah injured as well, Kamada suspended till game week 15. You're just really light offensively at the moment. Fixtures coming up are not great for Palace. So picking up bits like this, pretty good actually. I don't think anybody be looking at Palace investment for fantasy this week, despite Newcastle home Ipswich away not being terrible in the next two. The Venny is 4.5, but I just think it's cover at the moment. I don't think he's going to stay in the team and become first choice. I don't foresee that happening. For Villa, it's what, 5 or 6 without a win now, is it?
Yeah, they're really hit and miss. For those that went on Luca Dean, for years he's been trolling you.
Unbelievable, man.
He's been trolling the whole FPL community for years. So all I can say is you knew it before you were buying him. I get it that he scored for France and whatever else. That to not see him in the starting lineup was a surprise, though.
Yes,
Don't
it
get me
was.
wrong. I didn't think Maatsen would come in. There's every chance he'll come back and take his place. But that really was a surprise and kick in the teeth that we probably should have all seen coming with him. But yeah, they've kind of had to chop and change a little bit in the front 5 and 6. Like Ramsey's been in and out a little bit and what have you. So I think Duran's not available now, is he? Thought I had seen that he's injured. I could
I've
be
not
wrong.
seen that. I've not seen anything
I
about
could be
that.
wrong.
That would be
I
major
could be
news if
wrong.
that's
I'll
right.
check.
So check your source, please.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. Don't take my word for it, but they've had to chop and change a little bit. Obviously, with Ramsey didn't start again at the weekend. I don't know, James, what I make of Villa at the moment. I kind of feel like the curse of European football. I mean, they've had Conference League, but Champions League is completely different kettle of fish. And whether or not that volume of high level football now is having an impact on their consistency.
I can find nothing about a John Duran injury
Okay.
before you get everyone excited, boss.
Why would that be exciting? No one's buying them anyway.
Well, no, but I do want to buy Ollie Watkins for Brentford and Southampton at home, and I'm worried that he's not going to start both games.
Nah, I mean, I don't think I have any doubts on Ollie Watkins. I'm only holding him actually because you're on my case to hold him.
Well, at least he scored at the weekend. It's first time in a while.
Well, the thing is, he has been chipping away for a little. Like he's not a bad asset still.
In those 2 weeks, 14 and 15 is captainable if you think he's going to start. Will not be moving that at this stage, boss. Afterwards, yeah, I'd probably move it on. But I might even dive in for a couple. I've said this for a number of weeks.
Yeah, but do you know what it is with Ollie Watkins? It's money. If you said to me, I need to go and get Saka, he's the easiest asset for me to downgrade to find money because of Joao Pedros of the world and whatever else you might like, even if it's coming down to Cunha or what have you. That's the thing with Ollie Watkins. When I look at my team, there's 2 players that can give me money. Ollie Watkins and Josko Gvardiol. And Gvardiol doesn't give me enough. Like I can only get maybe $1.5 million out of Gvardiol if I was to downgrade him. That's the thing with Ollie Watkins that I think a lot of people, if they're looking to find money, might be thinking.
Yeah, he's going to stay on mind for me. I think Morgan Rogers is probably not one people are looking to invest in, but it's still going to be one, I think, with these forthcoming fixtures that people hold on to at the moment. I think most will want to start him in 14 and 15. I think he's probably benchable for many this week away to Chelsea. I'd say what did stand out for me for Villa, and it stood out after Unai Emery's press conference on Friday. So he ruled Konsa, Kamara, Ramsey and Onana out.
Mm-hmm.
And I did think, I tell you what, for a 4, they're all pretty powerful. I feel like Villa don't feel as physical to me at the moment with certain personnel missing. Like I look at that back line of Bogard, Carlos, Torres, Maatsen, I think that's weak.
Carlos is quite a physical guy.
I think it's crap. Sorry. I think Villa have problems when he plays. And I think they've had a bad result here where Ezri Konsa's a big miss. Obviously, Matty Cash wasn't ready to start yet. If those 2 are back available, that's going to be better for them. But I think Carlos has been problematic actually for Villa for a while when he plays. Definitely not as comfortable holding that high line as Konsa and even Pau Torres are, for example. And even Tyrone Mings will probably be quite aggressive with it as well. I realise obviously he's coming back from a long-term injury issue. Barkley and Tielemans in midfield together feels quite nice. And from a fancy perspective, Barkley scored from a corner, admittedly, and Tielemans has missed a penalty, but that feels quite nice. It just didn't look like as physical. I think that's been a trait of Villa. I think since Unai Emery come in, they've become a much more physical team. And I looked at that team and that lineup at the week, and I thought it just looks weak. It looks short of physicality. Tielemans missed the pen, so is Ollie Watkins getting them, Suj?
No, Morgan Rogers is.
I think you might be right.
I was hearing that he was the one that was taking him for the under-21s for England, and he is a penalty known as a penalty taker. Tielemans is missed quite a few now, so I think Morgan Rogers is the one that might be getting them. When I was looking at my transfers, if I had the money to go from Rogers to Mitoma rather than Semenyo, and then I can hold Semenyo, but I think Rogers at his value, I'm just gonna leave him in for now as my 8th attacker, and if he does get penalties, makes him all the more attractive. He'll get penalties in the weeks where I've benched him.
Can I just say something that's absolutely irrelevant, but want to share it? I just had a calendar notification pop up, and it said eye test, and I was like, "What the fuck do you think I'm doing right now?" Honestly, it's obviously for the wife's puts an eye test, and that was nice. Not my first instinct of eye test. It was definitely football eye test. Shout out for Dean Henderson, because I always criticise him, but he's very good at saving penalties.
Anything else to add from this game? Should we go to the South?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a big conversation to have about Villa this time next week.
Yep. Bournemouth 1, Brighton 2. Brighton coming up trumps and sitting pretty fifth in the table now, just one spot ahead of your lot. They have been consistently good for a while now, where I'm like, right, okay, I do want one of your attacking assets. Absolutely take your point around Joao Pedro. Just something makes me nervous about him in terms of minutes. That's all it is, in terms of minutes, because they need to look after him. The last thing you want is him to go off injured again.
You don't need to be nervous about that this Friday, mate, because they play Friday and then they don't play again until Wednesday. So we spoke about this last week. Big gap. That's the only one, isn't it? 14, 15 is a 3-day gap. Otherwise, their spacing is not bad. So could he be a substitute? Maybe say like Leicester away in 15. I'd say yeah, maybe. But he's also returned off the bench this year. Obviously, people have seen it recently against Manchester City. At that valuation, yeah, I know I've been kind of screaming for weeks for people to sell him when he was injured. But my reason for screaming at people to sell him was just so many other good forwards like Visser and stuff like that at a nearby value, who you're thinking, yeah, I need to go and get some of that now rather than just waiting. Now, those who waited have saved themselves 2 transfers along their path, right? I get it. And now it's desirable, because if you want an enabling forward, I think that's definitively the one. If you're sitting there with like Calvert-Lewin and you haven't got money in the bank, how are you honestly making any different move this week?
Yeah, if you've got a Calvert-Lewin, even I'd say Jimenez at Fulham, I think those are easy moves. And even Strand Larsen.
Yep.
Right now, Strand Larsen is a sideways move for me, pound for pound, 5.6, 5.6. But I definitely like the look of my team with Joao Pedro in it more than Strand Larsen.
People might have been prioritising other things. Those 3 forwards that you've mentioned there, Larsen, Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin, would you take hits to move from them to Joao Pedro?
Larsen, Jimenez,
Calvert-Lewin.
Calvert-Lewin and Jimenez, yes. Strand Larsen.
Still good, aren't they? I think I almost feel like that's part of the problem. Clearly Cunha was worth paying the extra for, right?
My biggest problem with moving on Strand Larsen to Cunha is it's within the same team, and I know for a fact that Cunha will blank and Strand Larsen will pick up a goal and an assist, and it will hurt me. So kind of for my own mental health, going to Joao Pedro is probably better, because it's not a player from the same team that can hurt me. From Strand Larsen, I probably wouldn't, because I think that fixture this week is okay, Bournemouth, for him. For the other 2, yeah, I definitely Calvert-Lewin all day long. Yeah, I would.
What about people like Wood and Visser? Not for hits. I don't think you could
Visser,
this week with the fixtures I've got.
Way.
But do you move this week?
Visser not this week. I think that Leicester fixture, like we don't know who's going to be coming in, right? There might be new manager bounce, but
I mean,
unlikely.
this week, that front three, if you had that Joao, Pedro, Visser, and Wood, that's great this week, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
It's a free promoted team
I wouldn't
at
take a
home.
hit for Visser and Wood. I just think their fixture this week is too good.
No, but you want to, if you're going Pedro, you want to go now, don't you?
Yeah, but then if you want to get like an Arsenal attacking asset like Saka with West Ham coming up, you want to go now. There's a number of players where you might want to go now, but you can't be having them all, James. I think I would with the others. I wouldn't with Wood and Visser.
When Alexander Isak gets injured this evening, that'll all become irrelevant for everyone anyway. Just be Isak, the Joao Pedro, and move the money, won't it?
If you own him.
Well, so many people bought Isak, obviously, last week, including me. Did you go there, Suj?
I did not. I did not.
Anyway, for Brighton, another excellent result. Bournemouth have been very good this season. Have obviously got through the last half hour or so here with our Baleba. We've had a lot of questions about Estupinan over the last week. And I think I'd just say Kadioglu is not out as long as we thought originally that he probably would be. Jack Hinshelwood didn't start at the weekend. I feel like at any point, Hertz could just play him at left back. I think there's upside in it, but I wouldn't bother. Is my take. I would, if I wanted to invest in Brighton defensively, I'd be going for Bruggen or Van Heck. I'm playing it quite safe from that perspective. I don't think Lewis Dunk is an absolute shoe-in to get back into this team. I did say in pre-season that I thought there was a chance that he would get phased out this season, and had quite a bit of pushback from that, like he's captain and stuff like that. So I get it, but Van Heck is obviously improving to a level now where he's getting linked with some bigger clubs, with all due respect to Brighton. And actually, since Julio's come back in, it's had a better balance. So I don't think it's a definitive that Lewis Dunk definitely comes back in that team. I think Van Heck's ahead of him now. In the attacking areas, they've got so many good talents. And that's the one scary bit, kind of, as you said, with Joao Pedro. It's not like they can't just any game go, yeah, I'm going to just play like Evan Ferguson and Rutter through the middle, for example.
This is it. I thought Rutter was the one.
Wide. You could do anything like that.
I thought Rutter was the one that was going to miss out for Pedro, but he ends up moving across to the right, and there's no Dingra now. Solly March is getting back to fitness now as well, so he's a potential on the right hand side to come in and play. No Minter. Yeah, they've got talent galore up there, which is a potential problem.
If you were a Danny Welbeck owner, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking to just hold him at the moment.
I absolutely agree with that, by the way, without a doubt. I was thinking, do you think of going the two?
No.
Going Welbeck and Joao Pedro?
No. Because think about it now. We're coming back. This is back to a conversation about structure of what you want within your strikers. You talked about the wish, all the 7.5 to 9 million, including Watkins strikers. You definitely want one of them. If you're going to end up with a Pedro at 5.6 or any of the other cheapies, then what do you do with your middle striker? I think a Cunha or a Wood value striker is better. I don't think I would do both.
Okay.
I don't think I'd do both.
But imagine the scenario. You're sitting there with, say, Welbeck, Isak, and Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, dilemma.
You're going to think about it, aren't you?
I think you would. Yeah, I think that's a very unique set of circumstances that someone may be in. And in that situation, I would probably do it knowing that at some point, Welbeck's the one that I would sacrifice to move on for whoever else rather than Pedro. Like Pedro, I'd come in to keep. Welbeck, I'd keep until and when it became a problem for me that I wanted to move on. Yeah, I get that. I think there's a very unique set of circumstances that someone would be in, though, with that front line.
For Bournemouth, I think the defensive lineup as it is at the moment is pretty solidified at the moment because Rojo's got a hamstring injury, he's going to miss a couple of months. So that back four, and I know Milos Kerkez is probably the most attractive of it, is absolutely fine to invest in. I think Kepa's kind of clearly going to be the number one again now ahead of Travers. It's not the first time though, and I warned this about last week. Ryan Christie misses a game for Bournemouth and they're just not quite at the same level. I think it's so important to them. Mm-hmm. It's not relevant to fantasy, but it's relevant to that football team. There's no shame in them losing at home to Brighton, by the way. He obviously missed out with suspension. He'll be back next week. Semenyo misses this week. with suspension, which I guess has a knock-on impact that people will feel a little bit more comfortable playing Ray and Nori this week
Yeah,
as
no
Bournemouth
doubt.
go to Wolves. But Bournemouth have other good attackers. Like I said, Semenyo now getting suspended brings him right onto my radars, potentially looking at 14 going Garnacho to Semenyo, and then Boomer to Saka, something like that.
Is that also because it helps you find money?
Yeah. If I'm good, I don't need to find a lot to put Saka in at that point.
Yep. Yep.
Semenyo obviously in for Garnacho. Now the suspension's out the way. I couldn't. There was no way I could really consider him having Nori and Jackson. Now that he's out the way, though, potentially getting in for Dr. Tottenham in game week 14 because we only beat good teams. Although Bournemouth are a good team, so we might go there and win.
Yeah, but it's away. And having said that, your home record was on fire until this weekend. So this is the irony of you lot, right? When I need you at home to Ipswich.
If people haven't realised yet, let me tell you that I am part of a social experiment because it must be. To support my football club must be a social experiment, mate.
Everton 0, Brentford 0. Everybody that I've seen talked about this game, who's watched this game, wishes they hadn't.
This is a really bad result for Everton in the context of Christian Norgard getting sent off.
Such an early red card.
Can just say as well, I know most of the pushback on it, and Brentford have said they're going to appeal the red card. And understand appeal, like fine, don't ask, don't get. And I think that there's a conversation to be had. I actually think it's a red card. I think if that happens on the halfway line between two outfield players, I don't think anybody is not saying that's a red card. But there's like he's trying to score on it. He's got to go for it. Where he catches Pickford is rough. If that happens in the centre circle, you're all going, that's a red card.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's too high. His foot's too high.
I think they might only get it overturned because there's been quite a bit of media pressure publicly to say, I don't think it is. But I think it's a red card.
I'm with you. I think it is. I think it's too high. It's a dangerous part of the leg.
From an official perspective, you can't go, that happened in the penalty area, I'll treat it differently. I don't think you can.
No.
So for me, I thought it was probably the right decision. He will be a miss for Brentford if he's unavailable, but they managed to obviously sort themselves out really well. I mean, for Norgard to miss sort of Villa away, Newcastle at home would be notable for Watkins and Isak owners potentially. They concede plenty of goals and chances anyway, but they're definitely better when Norgard plays, so it's notable. It's a decent result for Brentford under the circumstances. Reality here is that Everton's best chances were 11v11. I think Idris Gana Gueye had 4 shots in the game from outside the box. I can't think of a stat that will sum up any game better this weekend.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Is this the way? It's not. So if you look at Everton had 27 shots. Yeah, but they've never really threatened to score in the second half massively.
It's the same problem they had when they played Mighty. It's just they don't ever feel like they're going to score. And with Ndiaye and stuff and Dwight McNeil back on the pitch, they have some creative talent up there. It's just really never feels like they're going to... I don't know if Calvert-Lewin is potentially the problem and maybe starting Beto now might be the solution.
Whatever you've got, Everton, you should be considering moving it on. I even think that includes the goalkeeper. It's not that you can't stick with Pickford, but honestly, I'd consider moving any of it on. United away, Wolves at home, Liverpool at home, Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Manchester City away, Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth away, Aston Villa at home, Tottenham at home.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Not good.
And that's where the concern is. And even things like, Wolves at home obviously looks like a green fixture in game week 14, but that don't feel so good this week, does it?
Well, it's almost a 6-pointer now, isn't it? So, not almost,
but I think
it is.
I think most of us, after what's happened, I said this in the build-up to the weekend, I said, we don't really know what Wolves are. Now, after Wolves win at the weekend, you feel more like, just with Cunha, as long as he stays fit, they've got too much firepower. They'll score too many goals, actually. They'll probably be all right. Everton is the opposite, isn't it? Like, you're relying on, when they win games, it's 1-2-0, stuff like that. So for them not to score from West Ham, Southampton, and then Brentford with 10 men for more than a half is pretty shocking. I think the feeling amongst the Everton fan base is once the takeover from the Freaking group goes through, they'll sack Sean Dyche pretty much straight away. That's generally the feeling from Evertonians, the most I hear from. I'm not saying everyone.
Well, you're going to hear from one this week, and let's not steal Sean's thunder.
Correct.
So let him have his rant. You happy with Mbomo for one more
Yeah,
despite.
you can't sell before that. And I realise it's possibly managerial bounce from Leicester and stuff like that as well. But I think they're really average. So, okay, yeah, Saka's desirable. I could force it this week. No, if I've got Bumo or Vissard, they're staying this week. But yeah, I'd be looking to move them on afterwards. I'm in a position where Bumo might stay for me for a couple more, but you're looking at exit routes. You're not buying new now. But
And
good
Visser
result for him under
obviously,
the circumstances.
Visser got hooked for Thiago, who finally played some minutes now. He's at 5.9. Again, it's not really a consideration with how difficult their fixtures are.
No, you talking
But
about
if
Visser
he,
or Thiago?
no, Thiago,
Oh yeah,
if
I
he
mean, well,
was to
that's
start scoring goals, it's another one to put into the mix, but not
well,
really at the
that's
moment
the
with
other
their
thing for
fixtures. But
Visser though is there's an immediate threat
threat
coming
now,
really quickly. So I'm pretty confident Visser will start again this weekend. But that threat, Thiago was bought
it's around the
essentially
corner.
as the Tony replacement. So Bumo, that threat doesn't obviously exist straight away.
Yeah. The second most surprising result of the weekend, Fulham 1, Wolves 4. We've been going on all season about how good a side that Fulham are, and they took the lead 1-0, to only be pegged back. I mean, two of the
This
goals
always
were quite
happens.
late, but
I've pretty much spent a lot of the international break telling anybody that will listen that Fulham are outstanding. They should be second on expected points prior to this one. They hadn't lost a game on XG since game one.
oh wow,
Um,
that's a
at
really
Manchester
interesting
United.
stat.
Yeah, even at Man City, they are XG Man City. And they're not the first away team to do that at the Etihad this year, by the way. Take notice. I said that after the Fulham game, these City results. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. The result is even more surprising. When I saw the Wolves team, I went, yeah, they're getting beat today. Honestly, with no Dawson and no Bueno, I was like, you've only got one centre back. So you played Lamina at centre back and Ait Nori, who normally plays left wing back of this hybrid system where they normally move Toti Gomez from left back. Excuse me. From centre back, sorry, to left back. Ait Nori's kind of played this hybrid role as well, but he does kind of look to me like it was more like a back four from Wolves. Again, I've not seen a huge amount of the game. Dawson was ill. Bueno O'Neill had said on Friday was available, so they're both pretty close. So it could easily just be back three again against Bournemouth at the weekend. So we can't read too much into that. I would say Ait Nori at left back is still absolutely fine. If it's left-sided centre back, problem, but I don't particularly think it was actually. Cunha, I don't think there's a lot more to say now at this point, is there?
Yeah, the question mark is just when. Like I don't know when. If I end up making the Strand Larsen to Pedro instead of Cunha move, I don't know when I'm
Well,
going to end up
if
going to
if
him.
Isak gets that injury tonight, it might just be
If
I'm
you
going
can't
Cunha now.
be
It could be.
hoping for an injury to force your decision making. Their fixtures are good for still at least another 5-6 games.
Yep.
But every game that passes with him, I'll feel like I've missed out. That's the problem.
But I
And
do
we've just
think,
missed 2 double-digit hauls.
but I do think actually, if you look at the next five, there's a case to say each fixture gets better. Say like with a couple of weeks ago when they played Southampton, I was like, I've just missed Southampton. I'm not buying it for Fulham away now. If you do look at the next five, what's unusual about their run is I think each fixture gets easier. Bournemouth at home, then Everton away, then West Ham away. And I think I'm not saying it's an easier fixture for Wolves, but from in terms of trying to score, I think West Ham away is a better fixture than Everton away. And then Ipswich and Leicester is to finish. So it feels like it goes on a trajectory where each one gets a bit better and then it just hits rough.
But the thing is, then it drops off a cliff.
Of course,
And
but it's
then
not to
whether or
say
not you want to hold
you
him through
can't.
that.
You couldn't chain that and go say like as a Watkins owner like you, right? You're clearly we've discussed you're not selling 14, 15. I do not mind if you go Cunha 16 and 17 and then chain that to something else.
I'll probably have other problems by then.
Don't mind. Don't mind. So his output is outstanding for the team that he plays in. I think it's something like 17 goals this year or something now. It's mad in the team that he's playing with that's been struggling. So I think there's possibly a lesson there in Cunha v Larson. And a lot of people were very much asking, is Cunha worth the extra? And I think we were quite consistent saying, yes, we think he is. But the fact that there's that million difference, we understand if people can't get there. And you and I ended up in that position, right?
Yeah.
With Larson. I think the lesson
But I
here
could have
is
bought Cunha.
so could I as well before.
This is the
Yeah.
problem. I could have bought Cunha
You can't look back on
and
it.
and
It's an
tried to be
error.
cheap.
Well,
Yeah.
no, to be honest, my big problem was that I bought eight Nori because I really wanted to continue taking Salah on.
Mm.
At that point, I bought eight Nori. I should have been buying. I don't want to work it
Salah and
out.
Cunha. Yeah,
Salah and
yeah.
Cunha
Three
right there
weeks
and then.
ago, I had that. I had the move money to make that Salah Cunha move, and some did, and they've done so well out of it. But you're right. Can't look back on it. Just need to find what's the next Salah Cunha style move.
That's
Saka
it.
Pedro.
Get on to the next one. That's not to say he should be definitively ignored. If people want to buy Cunha at this point, after Fulham away, I'm not going to tell people not to do it because that is one of the best talisman in the game at the moment. And he's put up numbers in tougher games. But I do agree with you. I think ultimately you said, he could be someone you stick with longer term. It will, once you hit sort of January, feel a little bit like how it will feel with Boomer next week. It's like, I want to take it on. It will feel like that with Cunha once we hit game week 21, they go to the bottom. I take Newcastle away, Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Villa at home, Liverpool away. Bloody hell. And it might be you want to make a move, someone like Mateta at that point, who's not much of a consideration at the moment. Might be different players. So I wouldn't think he's definitive just because you're getting up in value in him, but he's still a great pick at the moment. Defensively, I think that to be ignored other than eight Nori, but I think eight Nori's high enough now. It's probably a no. Jose Sarr in goal again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that bust up rumor about Sam Johnson was right because every week O'Neill keeps saying, I'm not telling you he's playing in goal. And every week the squad comes out and Sam Johnson's not in it.
Something must have happened.
So maybe something has happened.
Well, look, Wolves are now out of the relegation zone. So any concern around Gary O'Neill's job for now, I think he's fine.
And the manner of that victory at the weekend as well
is going to help a lot. There was so much talk of how much slack do we give them because of the fixtures that they've had? I mean, he should have had slack because of the fixtures that they had. But you know what chairman and boards are like. Sometimes they get itchy feet and they'll just pull the trigger.
Once we hit the end of game week 17, we'll have a clear indication of what Wolves' season I think is likely to be. Yep. In terms of, because then there's another horrendous run for them, obviously around the corner. But then we could look at it and go, well, okay, is fixture related because of just 4 in 7 or something, right?
Yep.
And therefore you'd fancy they'll be okay. For Fulham, probably does feel like sell, which is really reluctant for me to say because you know who they're playing this weekend. But in the cases of say like Jimenez and stuff, I think you probably were planning to move it on now. And things like Cunha and Joao Pedro are just going to be screaming at you if you don't have them and it's not far away from a value perspective. So I think probably, Smith Rowe, probably similar. Probably more with him, maybe a little bit more. Depends if you can rotate it a little bit. Like playing these guys at Tottenham this weekend is absolutely fine. But there are going to be players at other clubs that are interesting. I wonder if there might be a few that were planning to go Smith Rowe to Semenyo this week. Under that circumstance, you're obviously holding off for another week at this stage. Joachim Anderson, we need to see what the information is, but the fact that he's obviously come off and they've used all their subs, ultimately he's had a major impact on how this game was finished 4-1. But if he's come off, that would make me think he's not going to play this week at Tottenham.
Yep.
Q1-0 Fulham, Anderson goal, Jimenez assist.
Yes, we have seen you guys at home disappoint only a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, James. But let's move on to the Sunday games. Early kickoff, Southampton. Let's not. Man City 0, Tottenham 4.
We play you every week.
Here's the funny thing. Right? I look at that team. I look at it on paper. And I think if you played them every week, I still struggle to see where the 4-0 is on paper. Do you know what I mean? Like I look at Stones, Akanji, Gvardiol, Walker, Ederson. You've got Gundogan and Bernardo Silva in there. Like it shouldn't be a team that gets overrun like that, 4-0. And they did have chances and they created a decent XG, but they still got slapped. And I look at it on paper and I think there's something wrong there because it doesn't look like a result that should have happened. If you played them 10 times, do you reckon you'd win? How many times do you reckon you'd win 4-0? Like you wouldn't, right?
don't know,
once.
but we seem to beat him every other game or so. He's
They,
unbelievable.
you are the bogey team. You absolutely are the bogey team. You started this run of 5 successive defeats. You've continued this run. And I wouldn't say it's ended with you, because they may lose the next one as well against Liverpool. They'll probably win midweek.
We think it's probably my best ever away league game. I can't think of one better. And people keep saying, "What about this?" And I keep saying, "I wasn't at that one." Like,
league game.
Yeah, league.
Yeah. I was just trying to think about all-time Premier League away victories. And
this will be the best result any team has all season. I'll tell you that now.
But yeah, the thing is, though, when we spoke on the differential show and we talked about who's more likely to get a result, Spurs at City or West Ham at Newcastle, and we said you at City have the tools to hurt them. So I'm kind of like in 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Should you have won with that back two centre backs? Not. But we also had the conversation of who's got the tools to potentially hurt City most. Spurs. So I don't think I'm totally.
It's the manner
surprised.
of the result, though, isn't it? It's not that Tottenham won at Man City. It's 4-0, mate.
Yeah, the 4 goals is not as surprising as the clean sheet. To be honest with you, I'm like, okay, you scored 4. There was one late goal, consolation goal in there. Fine. I say consolation goal, a top-up goal, let's call it. But it's the clean sheet that is the most surprising. And obviously, I sold Porro, right? So I'm just like, where did that come from? We could go on forever. We couldn't. You could go on forever.
I will on on Wednesday.
Yeah, thank God it's Tottenham arse. What are we?
That's because you know what's coming tonight. That's what you bottled it.
Yeah, maybe we shall see. some surprising away wins. Wolves at Fulham, Tottenham at City, West Ham are going to add to that, James. I'm a Guardiola owner. I don't see any need to want to move it on because he scored 3 goals this season already.
You starting him this week?
In my bus team, he's in. Just wait till I sell him for timber, though.
Ahead of?
His compadre, Rico Lewis.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
we should know Vardy will play.
And Greaves at Ipswich. Yeah, I mean, if we get to Saturday and I've sold Vardy, I wouldn't be surprised.
Vardy still maintains great attacking threat and obviously could have scored. And in fact, he could have scored and assisted at the weekend. It was his cross for Haaland in the opening 10 minutes. And he had a shot that was cleared by Porro. I saw people saying, the guy I started has just had a shot cleared off the line by the guy I benched instead of him, who just scored at the other end and hauled as well. Like, not only has he got the 14 points, he's also denied me a Vardy goal as well. If you're one of those who's benched Pedro Porro this week, I'm telling you, please don't have any regrets on that, honestly.
And if you're one of those that sold Pedro Porro?
Right decision. Right decision. He's still, for me, on potential chopping block for me in a couple of weeks. I'm in a position where he starts for me, I think, this week, obviously at home to Fulham. And the capability is there. So far this season, he's proved not value for money, basically. Tottenham have kept, 2 clean sheets this season? They've both been in Manchester. I'm sure people bench Pedro Porro for the other one as well, in which he only got a 5-point. So people largely forget about it. But he put Solanke through for a 1-on-1 at the end as well, and was very nearly a haul on top of that one as well. So I guess there's a debate to be, well, Tottenham are so fucking Jekyll and Hyde. Should you just play your Tottenham assets, come what may, and it will be
maybe Porro should sign for a Manchester club if he keeps performing well in Manchester, James.
Did you see he kind of apologised when he scored? Nah. Because he was at City when he was younger.
Yeah, I know he was a former player.
Leave it out, Pedro.
Yeah, come on.
The rest of us are going mental behind that goal.
Yeah,
come on, mate.
Yeah, not needed.
Just fantasy on
do you know
Tottenham.
what? I agree with you on that point that you're making, though. Tottenham are so Jekyll and Hyde. Should you just play your assets? Yes. It completely puts me off captaining, though. Like we joked earlier about captaincy this week and Slanky with Fulham at home. I think the Jekyll and Hyde nature of what you can be really puts me off captaincy. And a lot of people have sacrificed Sonny, for example, to get to Saka. That makes perfect sense for me.
Wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, look, Son's returned again with an assist only. I get it. But he's been ticking along nicely, right? And you've got a home fixture where you have been good so far this season. But a lot of people have just made that move and sacrificed him already for Saka. Yeah,
I mean, in terms of Tottenham assets, if you had Son, yeah, I think you probably were selling it before this one, I should imagine. I guess the main one that I've seen people asking about is Johnson, because obviously he didn't start. So obviously Kulusevski playing out wide, who was brilliant again, was obviously a tactical switch to allow Maddison get in the team. One of the things I said last week was I want Pap Sarr back as the right-sided eight rather than the left-sided eight. Just fits like a glove so much better. That's better for Pedro Porro, by the way. Pap Sarr playing as the right-sided eight. There's a knock-on on that. But I have no idea if it sticks. James Maddison was great, right? Might have even been his best performance for Tottenham in terms of like his output at the end, the scoring the twice, you arriving in the box. Ange picked him in terms of ball retention. He played really well, James Maddison, and I've been kind of really critical of him even very recently. Like his performance in Turkey against Galatasaray was pathetic.
Yeah,
he had a great weekend. He obviously earns the chance to play again now. We obviously have a game on Thursday. That's going to help a little bit in terms of understanding Sunday. So for Maddison, for example, if he doesn't start Thursday, I think he's definitely starting Sunday. That's not the case necessarily for the others. So like if Johnson could start Thursday and Sunday, having now had a break. Kulusevski will definitely play in this somewhere, I assume.
when you say in this, I think Kulu definitely plays Sunday, the league game.
But it could be. I mean, is it beyond reason he goes? Because obviously we played Thursday. We got Thursday, Sunday now throughout December the whole way. Could he go? Yeah, I'm going to put Kulusevski on the bench against Fulham. I love that would be an equation for Tottenham. We can go. If fantasy owners won't like it, we could say, I don't know who's going to play for Tottenham this week. That's where the team needs to get to that, right? So the honest answer is I don't know. I wouldn't fret as a Brennan Johnson owner. I think largely at the moment, keep. But it could be the same team against Fulham as playing.
And look, if you keep, he came off the bench and scored.
Solanke is absolutely fine to keep. You've got no concern there. I will give a lot more praise for Vic, Dragoshin and Davis on our Patreon podcast. I imagine Romero will come back in. One important thing I will say about this, Van der Ven's a few weeks away. Romero will probably be back next week, it sounds like. Romero, in my opinion, has to come in for Dragoshin. Dragoshin, a left-sided centre-back, is shite. A right-sided centre-back at the weekend, he did absolutely fine. And the more simplistic nature of defending the penalty area helped those two players more. I mean, Ben Davis particularly was brilliant. But they both did really well. Against Fulham at the weekend, they're going to have to think more about what they're doing when they've got time on the ball. For Davis, that's fine. For Dragoshin, less so. So it's all easy to go, oh, well, they beat Man City. Well, why doesn't it happen against Ipswich and Fulham? Different football matches.
Different games. Yeah.
And to move on to City, I've been saying this for a really long time. City are easy to play through. In April, I said to you, Suj, they massively need to reinvigorate that squad going into next season. In pre-season, the addition of Savinho and how Oscar Bob was looking made me think that might be a possibility. That team is really struggling for legs badly. And the biggest news in hindsight going into this weekend wasn't that Romero was absent. It was that Kovacic was absent. Because when we played them in the League Cup a couple of weeks ago, Gundogan played as the 6 in the first half. And we'd done them over. We moved him about really badly. Kovacic came on at half time. It was much better. Now, I'm not saying Kovacic is the kind of that fits the problem and it will definitively be better. No, because I think really he should play in a double pivot. What City tried to do was to alleviate the problem with Gundogan playing as a 6, was obviously to push the two fullbacks really high and have Lewis basically come from right wing into midfield and have Bernardo Silva sitting in with Gundogan, so there was the protection either side. But once we broke lines, we were at them. Every time we broke on them, you had that feeling like we could score. As much as that, and listen, if City scoring that in 10 minutes, I'm fairly certain they win the game, by the way. It wasn't a 4-0. Did we deserve to win? Yeah, of course we did. It wasn't a 4-0. They are in massive trouble. Johnny Pringle, our City correspondent, tweeted on Sunday, is basically given up on the league. And you can't write them off. And I've made this mistake with City before, but right now, honestly, they are in danger against anybody that can play out from the back and through lines and get at them. They are all over the place.
I tell you what it is in previous seasons that I felt with City is I don't know who's going to get points off them. Like they are strong enough to beat anybody any time, and I don't feel like anybody can lay a glove on them. That's how I felt previously, which is why I've never. You always feel like they'll come strong enough to win the league. Now I kind of almost feel like anybody can lay a glove on them, and they're strong enough offensively to beat anybody, but also at the other end, anybody can potentially hurt them. And I completely agree with what Johnny's saying. When you say Kovacic needs to play in a double pivot, that's kind of sort of what having Lewis alongside him as a double pivot is, but that doesn't feel like a double pivot. Do you know, it feels a very
with
weak.
him. He's a great technician. But you feel like you can hurt him.
It's not a strong double pivot really necessarily. Kovacic isn't good enough on the ball really.
No, for me it's him and Bernardo Silva, or you move like John Stones into midfield.
I remember when Gundog signed back, and I was thinking, all right, well that's quite a good deal. They got off getting him off Barca for nothing for a season and whatever else. And you're not the only person that said the guy's got no legs anymore. He's a real problem for them. I actually thought he'd come in and do really well. I thought he could be a dark horse for FPL even because he's been a goal scorer.
Yeah, playing as like a 10 and arriving in the box, great.
But in that midfield, he's really struggling. Do you think Bernardo's lost legs?
I think where they're at right now as well is they're dealing with a massive mental fatigue as well. I think.
What's going on with Foden?
Oh, he's not at it at all.
Yeah, something's wrong. You're right. Like, it's not something's wrong. Lots of little things
and
are all wrong.
De Bruyne has been back on the bench basically for a month. At which point you're going to put him back in the team. But I've told you the problems before about playing De Bruyne and Haaland. I think he picked the team that he thought he picked. I always say this with Pep. He's a defensive first coach. He picked the team that he thought was best set up to stop Tottenham on transition. It failed badly. That's not normally the case, right? Then also think about all the narratives that came into this for City, right? So got this massive presentation for Rodri pre-game with the Ballon d'Or. They had a flag that went across the whole length of the pitch just for Rodri. They give him like what do you call it? The tunnel to the guard of honor. Guard of honor for Rodri. Guardiola signed a new contract in the week before. You've got the majority, truthfully, the majority of players back from injury. I think Ruben Diaz would probably be helpful here for City under this circumstance. Jeremy Doku, an absent player to carry as well. But the majority of players back and available. We've had 2-week break. So all the narratives for City was like, right, hit this now. And once we scored, there was a couple of periods in the game that were quite scary for them. The period after we scored up to the second goal, we were in control. And I think the worst one of all for City was the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half. Because at halftime, you know what I'm saying, right? Lads, we were at Brighton a couple of weeks ago. We were 2-0 up, pissing all over them. Lost 3-2. 2 years ago, we were in the exact same position at City. 2-0 up at halftime and lost 4-2. So you know what's coming.
Yeah,
the first
my thing was always you were 2-0 up too early.
Yeah, a little bit. In the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, we controlled the game. You're expecting them to come and throw grenades at you, mate. And they struggled to get the ball off us in that period. Then at 3-0, we actually make some streetwise decisions and go, okay, we're actually going to try and absorb you a little bit now. We're actually going to do odd things like players. I need a bit of treatment. Tottenham being a little bit streetwise, Suj really plays. City, Guardiola can find a solution. That's really important here. Like when I say, move Stones into move Stones into central midfield, I'm not talking about Stones stepping from centre back or right back into midfield. I mean him playing as a central midfielder to give them a little bit more base protection. They are in big trouble. And part of it is also offensively, Suj. Here's a stat for you. Haaland scored 55% of City's goals, right?
Yep.
If that stat is to continue, how many goals does he need to get for City to win the title?
Yeah, okay. Point taken. It's going to be north of 45. Does he need to get
45 to 50?
Yeah, north of 45.
So, I know there's a bit of criticism on him at the moment. And by the way, I don't know how he himself has not scored in the game. Although it's the usual. It's like in and around the penalty box, real threat. If you drop short, you're like, yeah, please drop short. Don't get in behind. But if someone else from that team does not begin to contribute offensively, especially when they've got all these problems defensively, Generally, they won't be near. In fact, at this moment, they would be more a danger of finishing outside the top four than threatening Arsenal or Liverpool. And I'm sure they'll fix it. But right now, it's a mess. And I think they'll get well beat Sunday.
One last question before we move it on to the Sunday games. With Dominic Solanke, I'm an owner, you're an owner. Have
No,
you
Solanke
given?
gone. I sold him for his sack, right?
Oh, right, okay. I don't particularly see an off point for him in the coming weeks. Like, I don't see a kind of period where I might sell him because the trickier fixtures you have, Chelsea, Liverpool, are home fixtures, and then you've got Bournemouth, Southampton away. I feel like if I'm holding him through all the way up to Forest Wolves, which is basically into 2025, it's okay.
For me, he is the best Tottenham asset by a long way offensively. So holding him is absolutely fine. However, I think we've seen enough evidence now from other games where we could score four in a game and he don't score. This is not the first time, right? West Ham at home
Yeah.
is another one. Villa at home, he scores twice. Okay. So I think what it is with the way we play, the goals are going to get shared a lot. Whereas when you compare it to Cunha's and stuff like that, you know he's going to gobble a lot of it up. So I think with Solanke, what you'll get is you'll get little periods where it's like a great streak. And then you'll get periods where maybe even Tottenham are having good results and his fantasy returns don't feel like they're there. I just think we're going to spread the goals about a lot. I think because of his value, keeping him from a consistency aspect is absolutely fine, Suj. But I do think the ideas of like many of us captaining him against Ipswich and stuff like that. Now, because we could win a game like Saturday 4-0 and it's just an assist, or the West Ham game 4-1 where he got nothing, an XG of like 0. So I just think the goals will be shared about a lot. Like I would never have foreseen James Maddison starting on Saturday, and he's the one who's obviously got
Got hauled,
the
yeah.
biggest haul. Kulusevski will chip in, Johnson will chip in, Son will chip in. I don't think Son's worth the value in any way at all. That would definitely be a move on at like kind of any point now if you still won't. Solanke and Johnson's keep for consistency, absolutely fine. Similar with Kulusevski, but I feel like with Kulusevski, you could have just drier spells where it's like, oh, it will quickly become he hasn't returned in 4. That's probably not going to be the case for Johnson and Solanke. They'll tick over. I can't tell you if Johnson will play Sunday, but I'll ask me on Marsh James Friday morning. I'll have a better idea after we've played Roma Thursday. Obviously, incredible result. Absolutely delighted.
Let's talk about the Sunday games then. We have Southampton 2, Liverpool 3. I thought when Liverpool went 1-0 up, I'm like, all right, cool. I don't need to watch this anymore. And at some point, Salah will do what he does, which will pick me up my goal later on in the game or something, get me my bonus points. Thank you very much. Next time I flicked over to look at the score, 2-1 Southampton. And it was into the second half. So then I'm thinking, right, okay, now there's only half an hour for the man to do the business and recover it. And maybe this is another upset that we're looking at for this weekend. And thank God he did. Like, this is 2 late-ish goals for him to come back. But it's not the first time he's done it. He is on fire. It's why I'm even more shocked at what I read this morning, James.
He really needs to stop taking his shirt off. It's really, I mean, forget the fact
Is it
I now
upsetting
own
you?
him and it's costing me points. Literally, when he did it again, I don't take your shirt off, mate. Obviously, yes, the one he's taking the 1 point or 2 points off me, you know that, and it's possibly costing him some bonus as well. It has ultimately, it's cost him more than 2 points actually. But I just think, stop doing that. You're going to run right to the camera with your abs out. And do you know what the little bastard even did, Suj? If you watch it back, he pulls his shorts down a little bit as well.
Oh,
I mean,
mate.
that guy is ripped something else, mate. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he's as close to you'll ever get to me using the E word, mate. He's back at that point. Yeah. And I honestly, based on everything I've just said, if you're not there and you're like, well, it's Man City, don't buy him. Like, for me, he's the best captaincy this week. His form's incredible. City are all over the place. Remove the fixture from your mind. I really think Liverpool will have too much intensity for Manchester City at the weekend, and I'll be captaining him unless he gets injured this week, basically. Not a doubt in my mind about it. So if people want to go Haaland down to Pedro and shove whatever they want up to Salah, yeah, get on with it. Even from -4, I think. Get on with it.
He's just, yeah. There are no words, James. I have no words for what he's doing this season so far. 8 double-digit hauls in 12 weeks.
That's madness.
Eight
There
double-digit
is,
hauls in
however,
12 weeks.
there is also a case to say, okay, across the next few fixtures, City, Newcastle, Everton away, Fulham at home, like you can read difficulty in all of those fixtures. So you can take him on. This is why you won't get me catching the E word, because I do think you look at the next four, and actually Tottenham afterwards, obviously, is the fifth. You could look at the next five and go, I can still take this on. And I'm sure there will be an element of people psychologically thinking, I've missed so much now that I'll just keep taking it on. He won't beat Haaland over the next 3 or 4 the way he has in the last 3 or 4. Surely, will he?
This is, I would highly recommend here FPL Raptor Ross did the podcast on FPL therapy with Simon, who won FPL, who was a behavioral psychologist or whatever, right? Behavioral science. These are the things, the narratives that we spin in our own heads for ourselves, James, because of the story that we want to happen. This is your brain playing its own trick on itself. You need to check yourself as to why am I thinking this? Is it because I want this to happen, or is it because out of fear or what have you? It's a narrative that we're spinning in our own head. He could easily outscore Haaland. Like Haaland now coming up against a back two of Van Dijk.
No. I'm not saying not outscoring. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying by the sheer volume that it's been.
I don't see Haaland going big against Liverpool.
Since game week 5, Salah's outscored Haaland by 50 points.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Haaland. I don't see him going crazy at Liverpool at Anfield. I could easily see him blanking in that. Then you got Nottingham Forest at home. Nottingham Forest are going to just dig in. The thing with Liverpool, with Van Dijk, Konate, and then Forest with Murillo and Milenkovic. These are big, strong, physical centre backs. Going to make the game difficult. Then you've got Palace. I can see Haaland doing all right about that. Then United is the derby. I don't know, I just cue Haaland hat trick. On evidence right now, I have to say that I could easily see Salah continuing at this rate ahead of Haaland.
It surely cannot be as seismic as it's been, though.
Yeah, it can't be. You're right in terms of the size, but
when you talk about defining moments,
was it 50 points over 3 weeks?
Like if you captain Haaland this weekend, it's unlucky. Genuinely.
50 points over what? 5 game weeks?
No, since game week 5.
Since game week 5, it's been 50 points.
I think Haaland's got 21 and Salah's got 71. I think I just counted.
Monster. The irony is that in the first 4 game weeks, it was not the reverse, because even when Haaland was,
Salah was still performing well.
Salah was doing really well as well. So it's like the reverse is less likely to happen. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I get Mo in prioritise. I actually think to cover the game though, Liverpool were poor. Certainly didn't look like a team to me that will go on and be champions, when I think we're probably playing the easiest team in this league to get at, basically, in Southampton. And Southampton acquitted themselves quite well, went to a 5-4-1 off the ball, tried to make life difficult, but Liverpool were just so sloppy just with their passing and stuff. Distribution wasn't great. Van Dijk and Konate both carried out on occasions and got pinched. So weren't great at all, but you won't remember it come May if they end up picking up the trophy. What happened when they played at Southampton? You'll have forgotten. Yep. So it is, I get it. Go there, get the points, win, leave is absolutely fine. But as much as I criticise City, Liverpool themselves will have to improve on that. But I think Liverpool's performance yesterday was mental. I think it's Real Madrid next, it's Man City next, it's Newcastle way after that.
Get the job done and get out of it.
It's Southampton. And I think it's difficult not to have that mentality. Arne Slot actually said pre the game, he said he thought this would be almost arguably the toughest one. And maybe it was from that aspect of knowing it's difficult not to think we're playing Real Madrid Wednesday, we're playing Man City Sunday. It probably is on your mind a little bit. You're probably hoping you go there, you get 3-0 up, and you
take a few players off and stuff.
Piss all over it. And then they get in front and which is through a shitty moment from Southampton. The problem, by the way, isn't the playing it out from the back. I know they've been really heavily criticised for that, because actually you don't lose the ball. It's not great, but you don't lose the ball. What Finn Downs is doing with a clearance is wild. You're going to clear like that with your bad foot, you better put some bloody height on that, because you're clearing the ball centrally right in front of your goal. Another goal that, of course, we had no idea how it was created live, thanks to Sky Sports and their shitty effing coverage of, I want to show you a replay of what just happened when the ball's in play. Stop doing that, particularly with teams like Southampton and Tottenham, who will always play out quickly from goal kicks. Southampton have got some rough fixtures coming up. I don't suppose anyone is looking at that from a fantasy perspective. But Tyler Dibling did really impress again. Suj, back in the team. You still got? Or... No,
moved him on for Semenyo.
No, it's fine. Back. It's not like getting, but I think, again, having watched him yesterday and them, you have to look at it. He's surely going to play the majority of games. So if you still want a midfielder at his price bracket, I still think he's the one. With them as well, with all due respect, they're shit enough. You're not that tempted to play him. So you're extending your money elsewhere, where he's kind of like the ideal attacker as 8th.
Yep.
Because you're not that tempted to play him that often. They do have some decent fixtures once you get into January.
I mean, what's the choice? Him or Harry Winks? Come on. Do you know what I mean? At that price bracket, there's nothing available.
All day. So... I always say this with a 4.5 midfielder. Get someone who might be something. And it's still him. He, it could have been Bergvall. He's not going to be Bergvall at the moment. Dibling is the one who might suddenly go in 2-3 months. Shit, I'm quite happy to play him every week. So if I was downgrading to an enabler at sub Morgan Rogers price, that's still the one I'm going to. But he would probably be sitting on my bench every week. Also, nearly all of us are at front three at the moment. So you do regularly have a midfielder you're not starting much. I get that Rogers probably doesn't feel strong enough for people where you want to play him every week. Like Rogers for many will be a bench this week, I think, away to Chelsea. There's other fixtures coming up, like City in 17, Liverpool, not Liverpool in 18. Villa have got Newcastle in 18. You think, bench Rogers, maybe. So I get it. It's dependent on what other players you've got. They played Walker Peters right wing back, Fraser left wing back. They switched them midway through the first half. Flynn Downs played as the central centre back. They're obviously light because Jan Bednarek's injured. So there's a determination to continue with that system. You actually played all right up front for the first hour. He's kind of awkward and gangly and stuff. Their problem is not going to score enough goals. I know Adam Armstrong's now scored in, I think, 2 home games in a row, but no, they're going to be vulnerable against anybody again. And any team that's good on transition is potentially going to hurt them.
Smash them. It
was a decent display for them, but largely you should still be targeting them. Konate's on 4 yellows now, Suj. So that's another one. It's kind of like with as much as what I've said about City, I'm not investing in that now. That's a comeback and revisit, I think, around about game week 18, if he's got that suspension out the way, I think.
I mean, obviously after game week 19, it extends though, doesn't it, in terms of the yellow cards?
Yeah, so it's after game 19, just in the event that we do have any postponements, then it extends to 10. If you hit 10, then you're obviously at a 2-game ban. Yep. That's a really notable one on Konate, because I think a lot of people, not a lot, but there would definitely be people went from Trent to Konate this week. And I can understand that sort of move. He'll be desperate not to get booked over this period, because the fixtures are tough enough. There isn't a good one you'd go, oh, skip that. Some might say it's Everton, but it's still Merseyside derby.
Yep. Ipswich 1, Manchester United 1. Obviously, Ruben Amorim's not going to be too happy with that as a first game, but it's a difficult game. Ipswich gave him a tough time. Diallo as the wing-backs is not going to get confusing for anyone, is it? Diallo.
You could just go with Ahmad. Ahmad and Diogo and save yourself some trouble.
Diogo can be Diallo. Let's have Ahmad as Ahmad. I think he has Ahmad on the back of his shirt, doesn't he?
He does, in fairness.
So
and on the website, it says Ahmad as well.
Interesting to see what the first lineup was going to be. When I was looking for midfield replacements for Semenyo, should I want to move him on? I mean, Rashford was on page 2, I think, but he still popped up as an interesting 6.9, having just scored and played up top for Manchester United. I don't think I'm going to go there, to be honest with you, James. But Yeah, Garnacho playing alongside Fernandez, though Fernandez dropping in a bit deeper from what I could see on the heat maps as well.
I think it's really, really difficult to read anything into that from Manchester United yesterday. The system is roughly what we'd expected. That was kind of really clear.
Yeah, I think the
But
system is, he said he'd going to play the system he likes. It's the personnel is what you can't read into, isn't it, really?
well, I think bar Fernandez, the whole of that team could look different in 3 weeks.
Oh, no,
All of
no.
it. All of and Nana, you're right. All of it could look different.
I'd probably say Delit's still likely to stay, but the rest of it, I agree with you. I think Delit,
Probably, but I don't think
Onana, and
it's
Fernandez.
impossible that we'd fast forward 3 weeks or so and you're looking at a back three left to right of Martinez, Maguire, and Yoro.
Yeah,
And
it's not
Lindelof's injured
impossible.
at the moment as well. You've got Shaw
What,
and
Johnny Evans
Malacia.
doesn't make it in? Are you having a laugh?
Yeah, Shaw and Malacia to kind of come back into the equation as centre back slash wing back options as well. Um,
You've got Mino and Ugarte instead of Ericsson and Casemiro.
I mean, that would be that was arguably the biggest surprise of all was the midfield selections.
Mm.
I think that probably, yeah, would probably become Mino and Ugarte moving forward longer term. No idea if Diallo sticks in the wing back area. No idea if Garnacho truly can play that kind of hybrid kind of 10 wing role, maybe. Rashford as a nine doesn't link. I'm going to do a piece on this in a week because a lot of what I saw on Talking Tactics, a lot of what I saw obviously reminded me of Conte's Tottenham. A lot. In terms of the structures and stuff, it's all quite very similar. And Man United, in terms of quality of football, probably a bit better. One major difference with that Tottenham, though, and this Manchester United was Harry Kane dropping short, right?
Hmm.
Rashford's a shoulder player.
Yep.
Want to do it. So that's the element where I feel like you'll get the biggest change. Obviously, Fernandez is a player that fills that area better and can be creative. He wants to come to the ball a lot. Amorim's interview before it was rudely interrupted by Ed Sheeran on Sky yesterday was really, really good, where he spoke openly about Fernandez. Like when he comes too deep, he wants to go long too much. And he can,
Yep.
right? He plays great balls over the top. But Bruno's a Hollywood player. If he can make the miracle pass, he will try and make it. And I think it's clear that from his perspective, he only wants Fernandes to do that occasionally because ideally he'll want United to play through phases and play through lines. So I think Ipswich as well, I think it was a really awkward first game. I predicted it to be a draw. I'm not surprised at all. I obviously saw Ipswich first hand a couple of weeks ago, and I realised the narrative would be Tottenham, this, that, and the other. But you're looking at them going, they look better than a relegation team. The manager, I think, is excellent. Kieran McKenna excellent. And there'll be, with respect to Ipswich, there'll be bigger clubs looking at him real soon, I think, over the next year or two. He sets them up properly. They're adaptable, got good players. I told you about the lap. He can really handle himself up front, and he's annoying. He's annoying to play against, and he give United's backline some difficulties. I mean, arguably Ipswich arguably deserve to win the game. I don't read too much in it from United. I thought with Amorim, what he said afterwards is like, if we do not try and hit a philosophy, then in a year's time we'll be in the same shit. That was the biggest thing he said of all. And I thought that was really good because what did we always say about United under Ten Hag? It's like, what are you doing? I don't see it.
Yep.
What are you trying to do? So at
What's the
least
game plan?
already
Long-term plan. Yeah.
in game week one, you can say, right, this is identifiable straight away that there's a structural formation change. Every single one of us can see that. So right away, you see the manager implementing his idea. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for United over that period, kind of up to this time next year, is that a little bit like Ange's first season. I don't think there should be pressure on him. I think that football club has been so wrong for so long. He needs time to implement his shit. And in that system, when I look at the squad at the moment, I think there are maybe one or two players that are suitable for it. So you're a long way off from being what Manchester United should be, which is a team challenging for the league. That will need several transfer windows to fix and get it to a really high level again. I think what you'll get with them is probably a little bit like what you've had with Tottenham over the last 15, 16 months. You'll have days where you're like, shit, they look really good. And then you'll have days you'll be like, that's flat.
Yeah.
They played Leicester at home and they can't break them down or something. I think you'll get some variations in what they are. And I think generally the opinion on United would be Everton at home, great this week, really good fixture. If you've got, definitely play your assets. After that, I'd be considering moving it on.
And Ipswich, no love there, even with like the likes of Delap. Now that
I
Pedro's at
think
the
the
same
lap
price and
in
stuff,
any other FPL season
would
probably
be
would be
there's
great.
just too
You're
much
not
in
buying
that
it over Joao
bracket.
Pedro or Cunha. Like,
And there's other assets around that as well. I mean, I'd probably have it. I'd definitely have him over Jimenez and Calvert Lewin, but you'd find the money to get to Vissa maybe even over Delap. The next four are good though. Like if you own him, just hold it though, right?
I'd arguably say it's a bit longer than that as well. Actually, I think Newcastle at home's fine, 17. Then it looks rough. From when they go Arsenal 18, it looks rough.
Mm.
Ipswich will win some games in the next few. For me, absolutely clear they're the best of the three promoted teams. I think the manager's a big reason for that. That might change with whoever Leicester appoint now.
Cool.
But Southampton and Leicester, I mean, depending on what happens with Leicester, it could very well change. Ipswich are capable of getting out of this. They're a good side with a good manager. They can ill afford to get people like Leif Davis, Amari Hutchinson, Liam Delap injured. But yeah, manager knows what he's doing, and they don't feel like a team that they're going to get really badly beaten. In fact, the only game they've really let themselves down was against Usage at West Ham.
Yeah, that was a bad day at the office. And let's wrap with the Monday night game: Newcastle 0, West Ham 6. If only you can cover that off on Wednesday. Did you say Clayton and James show?
I'm sure if that's the scoreline tonight, you'll be willing to make your own appearance, no?
Probably.
And pigs may fly, sir.
Listen, if I'd have said to you, you're going to go and win 4-0 at Man City, you'd have also said pigs would have had wings and flown. Now, Newcastle, West Ham, obviously, with game week still to go. I think the ownership in that match is really Isak and Hall, right? I don't think there's particularly high ownership amongst many other assets. Just looking here, Nick Pope's at 7%. It's quite higher than I thought it would be. Anthony Gordon just under 8, just under 9%. If West Ham have any players more than 5% ownership, the entire game needs its head screen.
And Andy Gordon's a player I've really got my eye on potentially.
Yeah, Fabianski, and that's it. And I can offer Fabianski, obviously, understandable. So we'll see what the movement is on ranks after tonight's games. We've been through the schedule already for the rest of the week. There are a few questions that have been sent in on Musk's app. I'm going to have a quick kind of flick through.
Got a few on Blue Sky as well, mate.
Oh, is it? I should start
mate.
using that as well. There are questions around whether Blue Sky is good or not. FPL Tractor says there was a fire alarm at Stockley Park yesterday during the Ipswich game. And so there was no VAR for a little while. Should we try and just muck around with the electrics continuously?
I mean, in the matchday live chat on Slack, it was like party celebrations. Get rid of it. Just shows. Oh, what are we going to do? Well, can we carry on? Yeah, you can carry on playing. Yeah. Do you know what? Referee left to his own devices. What went wrong? Did anything go wrong?
Andy Cole, which is not the Andrew Cole, James, says, how many beers did you have on the train back? Double digits?
I mean, we're only cans. Brewdog, 6, I think.
That's all
right. 5 or 6. I had a good few before the game.
Yeah.
Because Ricky got on the train at Milton Keynes and he just straight out of his pocket was like, "There's a can," and I was like, "All right, you've started me off now. I've got to get some more." And it's like once you've had one, he's like, "I don't need to drink," but once you put the drink there in front of me, I'm going to have a few more. So probably had 4 or 5 before the game, ciders as well. So it was a good day. It was the most I've drunk for a while, but it was fine. It was a good day.
Does your dad drink? Can your dad drink as well? Or does he take it easy compared to you? He was with you as well, right?
When we got to Manchester, I talked about this more on Tottenham on Wednesday. When we got to Manchester, it was levering it down,
right?
Like unreal biblical stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm having a beer in the station.
Yeah.
And then we're going to think about how we're going to do this. We avoided the rain completely, believe it or not.
Wow.
But yeah, there was some usual shenanigans that I'll talk about on Wednesday.
FPL Popo says Salah for Ballon d'Or ? He just never will get in the mentions, really.
Look, if Liverpool won the league and the Champions League this year in a year where there's no international tournament, I guess he's going to come under real consideration under that sort of circumstance. That said, Liverpool aren't playing in the Club World Cup if it happens.
And seeing that you put that Mo Salah, I mean, people need to go over to X and look at James's tweet based on the fact that he used that specific Mo Salah photo. Question from John Arman. That Salah pick gives me PTSD, with Oliver Render saying, what percentage body fat do you think Mo Salah has? I'm going to, I mean, he's got to be 10 to 12%, I would say.
The average footballer, I think, is sort of 5 to 10% body fat.
It can't be 5%. 5% is your bodybuilders. Your like.
Look at Salah, bruv.
Now he's going to be between 8, 9, 10%, I would say, body fat.
I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying. Most footballers are in between that range. 5
is what you get down to. Like I had a mate of mine that was a professional bodybuilder back in the day, and he was saying when you'd get down to 4 or 5% before competitions. But to be at 4 or 5, he goes, when he was at 4 or 5% body fat percentage, he was an arsehole. It's like, it just makes you so protein, grumpy and miserable all the time. He was a lawyer, and he goes, when he had competitions and he was the week before competitions, they told him not to come to work anymore because he just became an arsehole. I'm going to guess at 10% for Mo Salah's body fat percentage. If you're a personal trainer or you have some insights, why don't you jump in the comments on YouTube and tell us what you think? But I reckon 10%. A few people here asking about whether or not it's too late to go to Salah or keep going against.
Okay, man.
Yeah, he's just in too good form, isn't he?
I got asked that on my Ask James on Friday. Was it too late to get him in before playing the team bottom of the league? They're about to play the champions. It's still not too late. I think, we're moving to a scenario where this is, if it does continue, the disparity between, say, Salah and Haaland, then you're looking at, I can't not see Salah outscoring Haaland this week. Let me set it that way. There you go.
Yeah. FPL Flying Kiwi, it's an interesting one. What January transfers do you think will happen? What signing could make or break a team this season? I think Evan Ferguson getting a loan to a bottom team could make a huge difference. I don't think they'd loan him out, would they?
If Welbeck, Manchester City buying number 6.
They will definitely be doing that, whether it's Zubimendi or whoever it may be.
I imagine they'll push hard for that, yeah.
I can't see Ferguson getting a loan out. Can you?
It's not improbable.
If Welbeck got injured, who's going straight in as a striker?
Well, you've got Rutter, you've got Ferguson, haven't you?
Ferguson's the most like for like, though, isn't he?
Probably, yes. But could it be Joao, Pedro and Rutter? Yeah, absolutely. They've probably got someone else I've forgotten about as well. We just played with one.
Yeah,
the system at the moment feels like 2 kind of 9-10 hybrids.
Yeah. Anybody else that you think going to be breaking the bank to sign any players?
It'd be the usual, isn't it? The clubs who are underperforming will be the clubs that will want / feel the need to go and spend in January. And I think that will be the biggest one in terms of the season. This is the real reason why you shouldn't write City off, right? After Liverpool, the fixtures aren't bad if they can just hold on. If any team could get into January, buy 1 or 2 players that would fix it and say, right, go and make up 10 points. It is them, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with what they've got at the moment, honestly, they are in trouble with any team that can play through lines. They do not have the legs. It's remarkable. Don't have the legs at the moment. That was the interesting thing on Amorim yesterday, by the way. Their running stats were really low, United. I don't know if that was because they had quite a lot of the ball. Might be an influence on that. But actually, one of the big things was, well, we expect them to run a lot harder and stuff. Their running stats were pretty low yesterday.
Interesting. Cool. We'll keep an eye on that and see if that's to do with his tactics or his style of play. Cool. James, that's a wrap. That's all of the questions. Go on.
I was just going to say, I was looking through the Blue Sky questions, and I think we've probably covered most of them, but I'll give you this one because you might like it. Go on. This is from FPL PSY Las EI, who says, if you weren't allowed to live in London, what other UK city would you live in?
UK city?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if I'd live in a city, mate, to be honest with you.
If you had to pick one.
I would go somewhere like, I'm going to say Stratford-upon-Avon, because I like the Cotswolds as an area. It's quite like peaceful, quite chilled out. It's a nice area. I've been there a few times on holiday, and Stratford is probably the biggest city in that region. All like Oxford, somewhere around there, I think. Somewhere, it's only an hour and a half to get into London if I needed to for whatever reason. Oxford or Stratford, somewhere around there, I'm going to say.
I'm tempted to say Birmingham for access to other places via trains, because trains are quite important in my life. But otherwise, I think I'd say Newcastle.
Yeah, I think no, you're too old for Newcastle now, James.
I am. It's true.
You would be in trouble.
It's like my dad says, "Oh, I can't do nothing but look now." I know, Dad. Thanks for sharing that.
What, now or maybe the last 20 years?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, indeed. Listeners, thank you so much for your support and tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe wherever you are. We'll be back at you throughout the week with content. But most importantly, stay safe, look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other and play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.